3 NHL games tonight. A lot of fun last night in the NHL, except not a lot of fun for Oilers fans as we bring in TSN 1260 Edmonton's Jason Gregor. Eric Comrie made 46 saves to help Buffalo upset Edmonton 4-2. Darnell Nurse and the Nuge had 2 goals for the Oilers, who are 1-2. Jason, I assume you were there. What happened last night?
Well, I guess in simple terms, the Oilers got goalied. Eric Comrie really stood on his head, especially in the between the first and the third period. The Oilers outshot the Sabres 39-14, and only outscored them 2-1. And one of those goals was Nugent Hopkins with the empty net with the extra attacker on. Edmonton just couldn't finish. They had quality chance after quality chance. They had a bad 5 minutes to start the second period, gave up 2 goals. And that ultimately cost them the game. And Edmonton last year was one of the top 10 teams scoring 5-on-5. Right now, they're 30th. And it's not from a lack of shots and a lack of chances. They just their scopes are a little bit off right now, Rod. And I would think eventually that will come around. But the problem is they play a juggernaut Carolina Hurricanes team that comes in here. They've beaten up teams for fun in their first 3 games. So it won't be easy to get to 500 for Edmonton tomorrow.
Well, let me ask you this about the Oilers fan base. Nobody would know better than you with your life history and your role now. Are they reasonable in Edmonton? Are they a reasonable fan base? Kind of unlike Rider fans or not?
Well, I think it depends on which fan, right? Like, I think it's the biggest mistake is to generalize and think that all fans are the same. There's going to be, the vocal minority who think the sky's falling after every game. This player's terrible, that player's terrible. And, I think the vast majority of fans, I'll say this, they're incredibly loyal because the team sucked for a long time. Now the team's good. They're off to a slow start. If you went 1-2, in a 3-game stretch in January, December, no one really worries about it. But because it's the start of the season, there's more emphasis, there's more focus on it, which is great for someone in my line of work. So I get it. I understand where they're coming from. And I think the fact that, you lose to a Buffalo team that you shouldn't lose to. And Edmonton played well for the majority of the game, but they really kind of beat themselves more than I think the Sabres beat them. So, you know what? Calgary's they're undefeated. It's early on. Edmonton has high expectations. They haven't won their division, Rod. They got the longest drought in the NHL since 1987. This is a team that should be better. I expect them to be better. And so when you get off to a slow start, yes, there'll be some people that maybe want to jump to conclusions. But for the most part, I would say they're fairly calm right now. However, if all of a sudden you get to 1-3 or 1-4, well, things will change quickly, and rightfully so. This team shouldn't be a 1-3 team or a 1-4 team in any stretch of the season anymore.
Yeah, well, I guess it's a great answer. My point on that is we're a week into the regular season, and what I've observed from the outside is here in Calgary, last February, this is what I legitimately heard, Jason, on the streets. We don't have a captain. Who's Bettman going to hand the cup to? And I'm like, oh my God. What? That's a Calgary thing. In Edmonton, I don't think you'd hear that. I just think the fans are a little more reasoned there in Edmonton. You know what I mean?
Well, that's a funny line, actually. I guess in theory it's true, but I'm sure the players will figure it out. Hey, Calgary's got a good team. I still can't believe that trade with Florida, man. Jeez, they got Uyghur's a heck of a player, and Huberdeau's a pretty good player. Oh, and they got a first rounder. That's a hell of a trade by Brad Treliving. I don't care what anybody says. So, especially if the cap's going to jump up $4.5 million next year. Now that trade looks even better. But you know what? Hey, the Battle of Alberta. The truth about Edmonton and Calgary is right now both these teams. October's nice, and you get excited, and you get fired up positively or negatively. But ultimately, it's all about April and May now for those two teams. Everybody expects them to be in the playoffs. I hope they meet again in the playoffs. It's great having rivalry games. But, hey, Vegas is off to a pretty good start. They look pretty good, too. So maybe they'll have a say and not allowing Edmonton or Calgary to win the division. We'll see. But, there should be high expectations in Alberta because really, well, there was no expectations in Edmonton for a long time, and there's been fairly low expectations in Calgary. So it's kind of refreshing that both markets finally have some expectations. And I think it's realistic to think that these two teams should compete for the division title.
Insane amount of comments coming in. By the way, Ted in Red Deer says the slow start in Edmonton is made worse by the fast start for the Flames, in my opinion. Randy in Winnipeg says, I agree, Jason. 1 game out of 82. Media and fans overreact. Jeff in Winnipeg says, agree, even though it's only been 3 games, Flames are beating darn good teams. They hit on Dylan Holloway last night, by the way. I'm just saying, keep your head up, son. Welcome to the NHL. That's my take. What was yours on that? Bone shaker.
Well, Rod, I wrote about it in my game notes. Lyubushkin hits like a truck, man. That guy hits hard. He's kind of the equivalent to Nima Leinen on the Oilers blue line. Like, there's not many guys around the league anymore that are big, hard, open ice hitters. And you know what? That's a tough pass to take for Holloway, and it's kind of in your feet a little bit. But yeah, when there's certain guys on the ice, teammates, you got to be yelling. When Brian Marchment used to be on the ice, everybody knew he was on the ice, and he still got guys, because in a fast-paced game, all of a sudden, maybe you forget. I don't know, but Lyubushkin's a player that's not a surprise. That's not a lucky hit for him. He hits like a truck, and he's done it consistently to a lot of players. So it's unfortunate for Holloway. The Oilers haven't got on the ice yet today, so we'll see. I did bump into him after the game last night. He still had a runny nose, bleeding nose, but he was talking fine. Now, I'm not going to make any sort of suggestions that didn't mean he had a concussion. Not every hard hit means it's a concussion. Sometimes you just get rocked, right? Wind gets knocked out of you or what have you. So we'll see if he's on the ice today. Then he's not going to be in concussion protocol. If he is, then he's probably out a week. And the Edmonton Oilers, Rod, only have a 21-man roster. And so if you're only out a week, you're on IR, which means you're still on the roster. And Edmonton would basically have no spares. They'll just have to run with their 20 players, right? They might have to send a D-man down and bring up a forward, or they can just go 11-7 for the next few games until he returns. But that's the issue when you run with such a thin roster, is that if you get into short-term injuries, then you can get into a problem as far as roster options.
2 last things. One is the shirt you're wearing, Daily Faceoff. I've been traveling the continent. Jason, you're one of the owners, the founders, and kids are leaving periodicals like the Hockey News and stuff to go work for you guys at Daily Faceoff. It's the buzz. I love it. For those that don't know, tell folks what it is, if you don't mind.
Well, it really started as OilersNation.com, and then it grew. There's Canucks, Flames, Maple Leafs, Jets, Daily Faceoff, Detroit, Philadelphia. HockeyFights.com is all part of the One Bring umbrella. And now Playmaker actually bought us out, Rod, in November, big Canadian company. And so it just continues to grow. And it's a platform for a lot of writing. Frank Saravalli, of course, is our main national guy. And, brought in lots of other guys, Larkin and Ellis and others. So yeah, if you're a diehard hockey fan, go to dailyfaceoff.com, and then you can split out to all the different individual sites. You can go to hockeyfights.com. It's got blogs. It's got, video shows. Just brought in Boomer right out of Calgary, of course, formerly on the Fan 960. He's got a show on there now. There's a show out of Toronto. So it's growing. It's a lot of fun.
The business not only is changing, it has changed, and it's nice to be at the forefront of it. Feels good. And lastly, our obligatory CFL comment. Is it as bad in Edmonton as it looks? Where are you on that?
Oh, it is that bad, Rob. You've covered the CFL for longer than I have. And the Elks are not very good. You know what it is, Rod? Winning becomes a mentality, and so does losing. And the Elks right now, they know how to lose. They don't know how to win. They played really well for a first half against Toronto, and then just made some mistakes at key times. And their offensive play calling's way too passive. In this offseason, if Chris Jones doesn't bring in a new offensive coordinator, I don't think that's a good look for the Elks. I'm sorry, but Steve McAdoo, to me, is not the answer for the offensive play calling of the Elks. For a guy who's so aggressive defensively, they're incredibly passive offensively. And I saw that in Edmonton before. I know they won, but that was more so the talented players they had. I saw it in Saskatchewan, and I'm seeing it again in Edmonton. I would look for a different OC, but I knew it would be a rebuild year again for them. You don't just take over the team and expect that you're going to bring in all these new players and you're going to have success. But the problem in Edmonton is the fans have really kind of tuned it out. They haven't won a game. They've lost 16 consecutive home games, Rod. That's a CFL record. That's a North American football record. And now you've got the BC Lions. The only saving grace for the Elks is BC hasn't won in Edmonton since 2013. So that's the last time. That's the last team they beat was in 2019 in October. And just think about it. Fans like to go to sporting events because of the emotion, but they like to see their team win. They feel a little bit better about themselves. You walk out of the building, you're high-fiving strangers, whatever. Elks fans haven't had that in 3 years. And I don't know if they'll get it this week, Friday night against BC, but man, if they don't, it's going to make the offseason for Victor Cui and the salespeople a lot harder, because you know what? Fans are really turned off right now by the organization because they can't win.
Yeah, and BC's got a lot to play for, so that's not going to help Edmonton. From the viewers, Allie in Texas says, love Daily Faceoff. Jeff in Winnipeg says, Daily Faceoff has the goods. And from Scott K on YouTube, Jason is rocking the New England Whalers logo. This Canes fan appreciates that. I
learned that from you. Fans every Friday on my show, Positive Friday. But I was a huge Whalers fan, man. Huge Whalers fan. So I love the whale tail. It's the greatest logo ever in the NHL. And I wish they would go back to Hartford. They never will. But I would love to go to a game in Hartford at some point in my life.
If you do, take me. Gregor, thanks for the time as always. Keep rocking it.
Rod, anytime, buddy. Keep rocking.
Thank you, pal. Jason Gregor from TSN 1260 Edmonton and Daily Faceoff. Hey, everybody. Thanks for watching the RP Show on YouTube. And don't forget, we're live daily on YouTube from noon to 2 Eastern. If you like what you see, hit subscribe. And if you like the program, check around for other segments of The Rod Pedersen Show here on YouTube.